All right, so I think we should start now. Am I clear and loud? Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's great. Mm, okay, I think people will keep joining this call, so we won't wait more. All right, so I'll start with my introduction first. So basically, I am from India. I think a lot of people have joined from different countries as well. Uh, Somebody has joined from UAE, or maybe somebody joined from some other country. So they can tell their country name if they want to. Otherwise, it's okay. They can just write it in the comment section. Uh, so basically, I have done my graduation in BFA in Applied Arts from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. And after completing my graduation, I went to Mumbai for my post graduation, and I completed my masters in animation and film design. And currently I'm working as a motion graphic designer, but I'm a very passionate about watercolor, so I keep working on watercolor as well, and I keep improving my skill on daily basis. So that's why I just conduct these workshops, so that I can also improve my skills and I can also share my experience with you all. uh, I'll start this session with the watercolor supplies. If you guys have any question, you can ask. Otherwise, I'll just move ahead with the watercolor supplies. Okay. All right. So I'll just pin my other camera, and I'll just turn off my face. Okay. Don't need to see my face. So this is my color palette. This is my primary color palette, and this is my secondary color palette. I use this for color mixing, and this is the basically for the main color. I'll just talk about the shades, what kind of shades I use. So this is orange, this is burnt umber, this is sepia, this is burnt sienna, this is cerulean blue, this is ultramarine blue, this one is indigo, this one is olive green, this one is permanent green, light, this one is yellow ochre, then sap green, Indian yellow, Prussian blue, mauve, and scarlet lake. So apart from these colors, I have a set of cake colors as well. So I use the warm colors from this set because I don't have a lot of warm color in this color palette. So I keep these cakes as well. Okay, so now I'll talk about the brushes, what kind of brushes I use. So basically there are two types of brushes available in the market. One is like flat brush, which is obviously the flat, so you can say it flat brush, and the others are like round brushes. So I have different sizes of brush. So this is like 8 size, this is number 4, this one is number 2, and 0, and I have another brush which is 000. This is very fine, so you can work on a fine area with this brush. And this is like 1.5 inch flat. I use it for wet wash and for a bigger area to color. And I'm using Brustro brand. This is not very expensive, you can easily get it on any online platform. and I'll talk about the colors now. I mostly use this tube color. I don't use very expensive color. This is very average color. Anybody can get it here in India. This is camel artist watercolor for this is camel watercolor for artist. This size is I think 20 ml. Yeah, 20 ml size, and you will get it around $100 or maybe depending on the shade. So this one is tube and this one is teak. So I use both. And let's talk about the most important thing, which is paper, because watercolor is all about a good quality of paper. If you have a good quality of color and everything, but you don't have a good quality of paper, you won't get the result. So you should always use a good quality of paper. uh, Wait. Yeah, so this is the paper I'm going to use. This is an Indian brand called Chitrapat paper, Chitrapat watercolor paper. But you can also use Canson or maybe Brustro watercolor paper as well. So depending on where are you and what kind of paper you will be able to get it. All right. So I'll talk about the GSM of the paper is very most important thing. So you should always use more than 250 GSM. Less than 250 GSM won't be good for watercolor. And also there are two kind of papers are available in the market. One is cold pressed and one is hot pressed. So difference between cold pressed and hot pressed is like if you are using a hot press, you will get a very smooth surface, so hot press is good for calligraphy or maybe botanical painting and everything. But if you want a textured paper, then go with the cold pressed paper, then you will get a very good textures. I'm not sure if you're able to see the texture here, but for the texture you should go with the cold pressed and 100% cotton, because the cotton paper will absorb a lot of water and will get a lot of time to play around the colors on the paper. So yeah, that's all about watercolor supplies. And yeah, obviously you need a water container for that, and you can use masking tape to mask your paper on the board. So if you have any questions so far, feel free to ask about watercolor supplies and everything. I'll just try to explain you. So we'll just wait for a couple of minutes and we'll continue with the next process. You can write down your uh, question in the comments as well. Okay, all right. I think you guys don't have any questions, so I'll move ahead the next topic. So we'll talk about basic techniques of watercolor and brush control. So just give me a second. Basically, there are three ways you can work with watercolor. First is wet on wet, second is wet on dry, and third is dry on dry. So I'll just explain. If you want to follow me, uh, so then you can just grab your paint and try to follow me. Okay, so I'll just explain. wet on wet first. Do you need to stretch paper with water? Uh, yeah, you can stretch, if the paper is not very flat, then you can stretch your paper. But I think if you are using more than 300 GSM or 400 GSM, you don't need to stretch it. But depending on the kind of paper you are using. So if you are getting a bump on the paper while doing watercolor or valleys on the paper, then you need to stretch it. So a lot of people might not be aware about what is paper stretching. So like if you working on a water, then your paper start creating bump, so you need to stretch your paper so it will be flat while doing watercolor. So how to stretch paper? You need to soak it in the water for 5 and 10 minutes. Then you have to uh, mask it on a flat surface and let it dry. Then you start working on that surface. It won't get a bump or valley. Can we watch and do it later and feel it? I mean, yeah, it completely depends on you. If you want to follow me throughout this session, you can. If you want to do it later, you can also do it later. That's not an issue. So first, I'll explain wet on wet technique. I think I should put my camera more down. All right. So we'll create a box here, and we'll try to paint this box. So in the wet on wet technique, you have to wet your paper first, so you can just dip your brush in water and just try to wet it completely. No, so my paper is completely wet, and then I'll use wet color on wet surface. So that's why we call it wet on wet, which means you're using wet color on wet surface. No, then you can just, even you can blend different colors as well. So here I'm using ultramarine blue and permanent green light. And let's say if you want a very controlled and soft edge, you need to use a thicker color on this wet surface. So I'm just making a thick color, which means less water with the pigment. Let's say if you want to create a mountain kind of effect, then you can work on a wet surface. So now you can see here those soft edges and a very controlled flow. So this is all about wet on wet. So you have to work on wet surface with a wet color. Any question about this? Okay, so we'll move uh, ahead with the next technique, which is wet on dry. So let's create a box here again. So in this technique, you don't need to wet your paper. No, you just need to use wet color on the dry paper. So that's why we call it wet on dry. You are using wet color on dry paper. You can just make a simple wash, or maybe you can blend two colors or three colors or as many colors as you want. No, so this is wet on dry technique. In this technique you don't need to wet your paper, you just need to paint on a dry surface. And the third one is wet on dry on dry. Dry on dry. So in this technique you just need to use a dry brush. Dry brush means you just dip your brush in water and try to remove those excess water from the brush, so now your brush is dry, it only has the moisture, but it is completely dry, and now you need to use very thick color, which means you don't need to add water in your color as well. And then you just need to paint it very softly and very lightly, so that you will get the texture of the paper. Can you see these kind of textures? So depending on the paper actually, this is very smooth paper, so you won't get the lot of textures here, but again you can still get the textures. Yeah, so these are the three ways you can paint your watercolor with. Okay, do you have any questions so far? Am I going too fast or too slow? Let's make it interactive, guys. All right, so I'll move ahead with the color blending technique. So we'll just do an exercise here. I'll just create a box again, and now in this box we need to blend multiple colors using wet on dry technique. So I'll just start with ultramarine blue. Don't use dry color while blending. It should have a good amount of water so that it can blend with other color as well. So now you can see the amount of water in this color. Can you see the shine here? Oh. And again, if you want to blend green color along with this blue, you just add green color along with this. And then you can add your third color. Let's say I want to blend orange color as well. Then just keep adding your colors like this to blend your colors here. Make sure these colors are still wet while applying the second color, you know. So you have to be very quick while blending these colors. And let's say I'm just blending mauve color in the end. Yeah. So now can you see these blends? Can you see the softness between these colors, the transition between these colors? You won't get any sharp lines here. You'll get a very smooth transition between colors. So that's how you can blend your colors as well. Any question so far or any doubt? Okay, all right. So I'll just start how to know water ratio. I mean, depending on the kind of flow you want, the kind of color blending you want. Let's say if you want a very controlled flow, so you need to make your pigment very thicker, which means less water. And if you want your color to blend on a bigger surface, then you need to mix a lot of water to your pigment. I'll just try to explain with an example. So let's say I'm creating a two box here. Okay, and I'm going to work on this box with wet on wet technique. So I'll just wet my area first. And right now you can see my palette here. The color has more water. It's very transparent. And then I'll just apply this color on the top. And we'll just tilt this downwards. So you can see the colors are getting down along with the water. And this color is also very transparent. So first doubt is, if you are using a lot of water to your pigment, you will get a very transparent color. So if you want a opaque color, you need to use a thicker pigment. So let's say I'm going to use thicker color in this box. So I'll just wet my paper first. Okay, and now I'm using a very thick color, and we'll just apply the same way from the top. So now you can see the difference between these two. Is it clear now? Ashika, is it clear? Great. Okay, so now I'll move ahead this session with our next topic, which is brush control. So there are many ways to hold your brush. If you want to do a very fine detail, you need to hold it closer to the tip. So let's say if you want to do a very detailed work, then you should hold your brush closer to the tip. If you want to do a free flowing work, then just hold it slightly away from the tip. You can get a bigger arc here. So let's say if I'm just trying to paint an arc here, and if I'm holding my brush closer to the tip, I'm restricting my move here. Can you see? So let's say if I'm creating an arc, I won't get a very bigger arc. It's a very small arc. Uh, and if I'm holding my brush slightly away from the tip, I'll get a very bigger arc. You know. So try to hold your brush slightly away from the tip. Then you will have a very good flow. So let's say if you are just even painting a straight line, can you see? You will have a good flow. And if I'm holding it closer to the tip, I won't be able to paint on a bigger surface. So I'm restricting my move here. So just try to hold it slightly away from the tip. Okay. So we'll do an exercise here. We'll try to use our brush in a different way. So first we'll start with a straight line. You can practice it later, or if you want to practice it now, you can just go along with me. Okay, I'm just starting with a straight line. Just practice this. All right, these are vertical lines, and now I'll paint horizontal lines as well. Okay, this is all about the straight lines. Now let's practice painting a curvy line. You know, I'm just uh, holding a thick brush. Let's say if you want to paint a leaf, this technique is good for painting leaf. In this technique you just start with a very light press. So I'm starting with a very light press and just press it in between and then lift it softly. Can you see this shape? So this is how you need to practice. Start with a light pressure, then put pressure in between, then again lift your brush softly. So you can just paint any kind of leaf like this. You see? Just try to get these curvy lines and practice it. There is another way to paint, which is like side holding. So you need to you need to hold your brush like a side way, like this, and then you can paint a very flat line like this. Again, notice how far I'm holding my brush. You know, can you see? If I'm holding closer to the tip, I won't be able to paint it. No, so try to hold it away from the tip and just press it against a paper and try to paint a flat line here. You can again paint vertical flat line and horizontal flat line as well, like this. And then there is one more way, which is dry brush technique. Again you need to use a very thick color and you just need to press it against a very softly to get the textures. you know can you see these textures? Is it visible, right? So practice this brush technique. Can you see the difference here? I'm holding the same way, but it's all about the pressure you are putting on the paper. So here you have put a lot of pressure on the paper to get the flat line. Here you are using it a very lightly, very softly to get the textures here. You know, just try to practice these brush technique. Okay. Any questions so far? Any doubt? Which one size brush do you recommend? Uh, See, size depends on the kind of painting you want to paint. If you want to work on a very small surface, on a very detailed, then you should use a fine brush, maybe zero or maybe one or two number. But if you want to practice this exercise, I'd say use like four number brush or maybe four or six number. Okay. All right. So we'll move ahead with the next topic, which is uh, techniques to paint watercolor skies. So I'll just grab my watercolor paper now. I'll just divide it into two parts. Okay, before that, I want to tell you something else. So basically, there are four stages of any painting, any watercolor painting. One, when your paper is completely wet. Second, which is moist, when your paper has a lot of moisture. Third, damp, which is your paper is almost about to dry but it still has some kind of moisture. And the fourth, which is your paper is completely dry and you can again re-wet it. So these are the four stages you have to face while doing any watercolor painting. So let's say I'm just painting a sky using technique lift off the paint. Okay, so I'm just wetting my area first. So this is my first stage of painting, in which stage my paper is completely wet. you know it cannot hold more water now, it's completely wet. So this is the very first stage. And now I will just use cerulean blue from the top. And you can blend a bit of mauve color as well. I'll just add a bit darker value on the top. So you need to create this kind of gradient. And now let's say if you want to create clouds over this gradient, just grab your paper towel or tissue paper and just lift your color like this to shape your clouds.
Sir, how much pressure we have to apply?
While doing this process, right? I mean, you just need to lift off the color, you know. So depending on the paper, you just need to lift it off. You have to press it completely. And
Is
you
it a dry paper or damp paper?
no, it should be wet, not even damp. It should be wet.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So you have to be quick. So now you can see those cloudy effect. And my paper is almost now, it's on a moist stage. It has a lot of moisture on the paper. So this is the one way to paint your watercolor sky. And there is another way as well, which so let's start wetting my paper first. So I'm doing wet on wet technique. This is another way to paint sky. So my paper is completely wet. Okay, and again I will blend my color from the top. You can use cerulean blue, mauve, ultramarine, but keep your pigment very transparent. So add a lot of water to your pigment. So I've created a beautiful gradient here, and my paper is still wet. So I'll just wait and let it dry a bit. So it only has a moisture, not water on the surface. Okay, now you can see the moisture on the paper. And you see the shine. So the water is all soaked. Now it has the moisture only. And then I'll add the cloud over the moist surface. Okay, use a thicker color. You can use ultramarine, indigo, and make a very dark pigment for the cloud. You don't need to add a lot of water. Your color should have very less water, and then you can just paint some clouds. It's like a dark black cloud. So you have to paint these clouds before your paper starts getting damp. You know, it should have a moisture on the paper. So now you can see the very soft and controlled flow. Okay, so these are the two techniques, and I'll just demonstrate a proper painting, like a quick landscape demo, and I'll explain another way to paint sky. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. You can use this technique to paint sunset sky. You just need to uh, start with your gradient here, then you can add your clouds on a very moist surface. How can we send our work to you? uh Kulbir, you can just put it on your Instagram story and just tag me. Okay, you can also take few pictures of this workshop and put it on your story as well. Just don't forget to tag me. I won't use Insta. Then you can just text me on WhatsApp. Just give me a second. All right, so I'll just mask my paper.
Sir, I have sent a request for joining WhatsApp group.
Yeah,
So
sure, sure, sure.
please
I'll just
add
accept
me.
it. Okay, so my paper is ready. I'll just change my water because it's very dirty now. Does taping damage the paper? No, it doesn't damage the paper. All right, so I'll start with the sky. I'll just spray some water droplets on my paper like this. I'm not wetting my paper completely. I'm just spraying some water droplets. So now you can see some amount of paper is dry and some amount of paper is wet. Okay. Where is my phone? All right. I have shared a couple of pictures on email as well. Did you get a chance to go through it? Okay, so let's say I'm going to paint this kind of cloud. No? So I'm just putting it here. So spraying, I started with spraying water droplets on my paper and then will paint with cerulean blue. I'll keep my pigment very transparent and just try to paint the blue area first. You know, my pigment is very transparent. So that's how you can paint. And now I'll just paint the shadows of the clouds. For the shadow, I'll just mix burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. Again, I'll keep my pigment very transparent. I just see the transparency of my color. It has a lot of water. And here you can see the shadows. You can add a mauve color a bit as well. and then I'll just add shadows from the bottom. And then I'll just blend these shadows. That's it. Risk eye is complete. Don't have to do a lot of work here. I'll just let it dry now. While looking at the picture, how can we know which technique to use? I mean, you don't need to use your technique when while looking at the picture. It's you who gonna decide how I'm going to paint my sky. So it completely depends on you. If you want to paint sunset sky, then go with this technique. If you want to paint cloudy sky, you can use even this technique and this technique as well. So depending on what kind of pictures, what kind of sky you want to paint. It okay. So it's dry now. I'll just paint mountain in the background.
तो कौन सा कलर लिया आपने?
मैं यूज कर रहा हूँ, आई एम यूजिंग ultramarine
तो
blue
कौन सा
and
कलर
mauve
लिया
color.
आपने?
But again, I'm going to use olive green as well. You know, if you don't have olive green, you can always mix uh, sap green and burnt sienna. is how you can just create mountain in the background, and later on you can just paint birds in the sky.
सर प्लीज एक बार बता दीजिए कि हिल्स के लिए आपने कौन से कलर यूज किए, दोबारा बता दीजिए प्लीज।
सो मैंने यूज़
सर
किया
प्लीज
है
एक बार बता दीजिए कि हिल्स के लिए आपने
अल्ट्रा
कौन से
मरीन
कलर
ब्लू
यूज किए, दोबारा
and
बता
mauve
दीजिए
color
प्लीज।
for the background mountain. Okay, and for this I have used olive green and mixture of ultramarine and mauve color. But keep your pigment a bit transparent. So I'll just take this tape off. Once it dries, outline comes. Now, how to avoid harsh edges? Okay, so how to avoid harsh edges? You need to work on the wet surface first of all to avoid wet. You need to work on the wet surface to avoid this harsh edges. You know, I've already started with blending the colors. Where's the sheet?
सर हिंदी में बता दीजिए एक बार।
uh, ओके, सो
सर
पहले
हिंदी
हमें
में
क्या
बता
करना है,
दीजिए
हमें
एक बार।
ड्राई, अगर जो हम ड्राई सरफेस पे कलर को ब्लेंड करेंगे तो वो हार्श एजेस क्रिएट करेगा। अगर जो हम वेट सरफेस पे कलर ऐड करेंगे तो वो हमें बहुत सॉफ्ट कलर देगा वो। अभी मैं बता देता हूँ, आई जस्ट एक्सप्लेन इट, जस्ट गिव मी अ सेकेंड। Yeah, this is done. Can you see the sky effect here? Can you see the cloudy and very fluffy clouds? So that's how you can create sky painting. Okay, back to the hard edges. I'll just try to explain with an example. So let's say I'm painting a sphere here, okay, like this. तो जैसे कि मुझे अभी इसमें शैडो ऐड करना है, तो अगर जो मैं वेट सरफेस पे शैडो ऐड करूँगा तो वो हार्ड एज नहीं आएगा, वो हार्ड लाइन नहीं आएगा। और अगर जो मैं इसको पहले ड्राई होने दूंगा, तो इससे अभी इसको मैं ड्राई करता हूँ। जैसे कि ये मेरा ड्राई हो गया, अब इस पे मैं डार्क कलर शैडो ऐड करूँगा तो वो मुझे हार्ड एजेस ही दिखेगा, वो लाइंस दिखेंगे ही दिखेंगे। दिख रहा है ये लाइन? हाँ, अब अगर जो इससे हमें हटाना है तो देर इज वन वे,
Yes, sir.
जस्ट क्लीन योर ब्रश, यू नो, पहले ब्रश को साफ करेंगे, फिर जो हल्का सा बहुत पानी रहेंगे, ज़्यादा पानी होगा तो नहीं होगा, और इसको मिला के इस तरीके से हम इसको ब्लेंड करेंगे, इसको साइड से। You know, that's how you can blend your color. And there is another way as well. So let's start painting a sphere again. तो जैसे कि मैंने ये फिर से पेंट किया और इसको फिर से हम सुखाएंगे। सो नाउ माई सरफेस इज कम्प्लीटली ड्राई। अभी क्या, अभी मेरा सरफेस बिल्कुल ड्राई है। अब मुझे इस पे शेड ऐड करना है। लेट्स से इफ आई नीड टू ऐड अ शेड ऑन अ ड्राई सरफेस, तो सबसे पहले हम क्या करेंगे, इसको दोबारा से वेट करेंगे। वी नीड टू रीवेट इट अगेन। तो बहुत ही सॉफ्ट ब्रश से इसको हम रीवेट करेंगे, ठीक है। वंस दिस इज डन, उसके बाद से हम डार्क और थिक कलर यूज करके इसका शैडो देंगे। तो इस तरीके से वो जो है हार्ड एजेस जो है वो नहीं आएगा। दिख रहा है अब, तो हार्ड एज नहीं आया ना अभी। Okay, so that's how you can fix your hard edges.
Yes, sir. This, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so I think we are done with this session. If you guys have any question, I'll just wait for 5 minutes more. So just shoot out your question. हिंदी में पूछना है हिंदी में पूछो, इंग्लिश में पूछना है इंग्लिश में पूछो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। And if anybody want to show their artwork now, they can. I request you to please take a screenshot of this workshop and just put it on your Instagram story and tag me. Gulbir Kaur, yeah, this is very beautiful. I like the cloud here. Good work.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. Anybody else wants to show? Or anybody else has
Thank
any
you, sir.
question? Ashika Bashir. Yeah, love the cloud. I think you have. Yeah, very good, very good, very good. Good work, Gulbir. Good work, Ashika. I can see you have used very transparent color and very smoothly. That's great.
Yes.
Good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Good
you, sir.
work, Gulbeer.
Thank you.
Very good, very good.
सर कोई मिस्टेक्स हैं तो आप प्लीज थोड़ा पॉइंट आउट कीजिए.
आ, अभी तो मुझे इसमें दिख नहीं रहा उतने अच्छे से ऑन
सर कोई
स्क्रीन.
मिस्टेक्स हैं तो आप प्लीज थोड़ा पॉइंट
लेट मी
आउट
जस्ट
कीजिए.
फिल इट. जैसे ये जो नीचे वाला है ना, नीचे वाले में आपने, वो मुझे लग रहा है वो डैम्प पे आपने कलर लगाया, तो उसमें क्या, उसमें हार्ड एजेस आ गए हैं. नो, ये
जी.
थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखना है जब आप उस पे क्लाउड को ब्लेंड फ्लो कराओ ना, तो आप पहले ये
जी.
ध्यान रखो कि आपके पेपर पे मॉइस्चर हो, बहुत ज़्यादा
ओके.
गीला ना हो, बट स्टिल उस पर इतना मॉइस्चर हो कि कलर जो है वो फ्लो हो सके. नहीं तो वो फिर वो हार्ड एजेस आ जाएंगे. अगर जो वो डैम्प की
ओके.
तरफ चला गया, मतलब वो पेपर
जी.
ड्राई होने लगा, तो वो डैम्प, वो मतलब हार्ड एजेस आएंगे. तो वो थोड़ा, आई थिंक थोड़ा ट्रिकी है. वो धीरे धीरे
जी.
एक्सपीरियंस के साथ ही आएगा. तो
ओके.
आप प्रैक्टिस करते रहें एंड यू विल एबल टू गेट इट.
ओके.
एनीथिंग एल्स गाइस?
सर आपका नेक्स्ट सेशन कब होगा?
नेक्स्ट सेशन आई एम नॉट श्योर, बट जब भी होगा वीकेंड पे ही होगा. मे बी
सर
नेक्स्ट
आपका
वीकेंड भी
नेक्स्ट
हो
सेशन
सकता
कब
है या
होगा?
नेक्स्ट नेक्स्ट वीकेंड भी हो सकता है. जब भी टाइम मिलेगा तो मैं करूँगा अपना नेक्स्ट सेशन. ओके. All right, guys. So
थैंक यू
I'll
सर.
just welcome. I'll just
ओके सर.
end this session now. Thank you all for joining, and just take a
थैंक यू सर.